Perfect. All right. Well, let's get started. Thank you to everyone for joining us for our business education on digital horizons, navigating e-commerce for small business success. The fabulous panelists that we have today are going to talk about every aspect of that, as well as other services that the REDC offers and that you can take advantage of as a small business owner. So without further ado, I am going to let these fabulous ladies introduce themselves. We have Liz Salas and Laura Harper Lake from the Regional Economic Development Center, and Dina Akel from Vieira Luxe, her fabulous boutique right here on Main Street. Hi, ladies.
Good morning.
Hey.
Hello.
Good morning. Dina, do you want to introduce yourself first and we'll go through everyone?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Dina Akel. I'm the owner of Vieira Luxe. We are an inclusive and affordable luxury occasion wear shop. So we carry items such as like suits, separates, bridal gowns, evening wear, you name it. And yeah, we're right on 100 Main Street, suite number 4 and 2. So if you ever need anything, I got you.
Morning, I'm Liz Salas. I'm one of the business advisors and underwriters over at the REDC, also known as REDC. Our main office is in Raymond. I'm usually floating around the state visiting small businesses. We are, which we'll talk about more, some of our lending products and how we support, but we are one of the largest intermediaries for the SBA's microloan program.
And good morning, I'm Laura Harper Lake. I'm REDC's design advisor and graphic designer. And I have a presentation that's going to dive into a lot of those aspects, so I'm not going to go too much further here, but it's great to be here.
Perfect. Liz, did you want to kick us off?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Alyssa. It's great to be here and see some familiar faces. So the REDC, many times individuals and communities aren't too familiar with us. So we're one of 9 economic development centers in the state where we work with small businesses when it comes to technical assistance. Many times we partner with other resource partners such as the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, SCORE, a Center for Women in Enterprise. So I won't kick us off with an acronym soup, but many times the goal is to really support for-profit businesses across the state, along with a mandate of supporting creating new jobs. So we do that a lot through funding and lending, which is our primary source and resource, where we do look to lend to small businesses that perhaps aren't ready to work with a local bank. We also partner with most banks in the state. And so what that means is with a lot of the time small businesses and startups, they have trouble with getting financing for startup expenses, equipment. So we generally come in and work with those businesses, whether it be to get them ready for traditional banking or to lend directly. And while we do have underwriting standards where we do look at credit, and we also look at debt service, which is a big one given the higher interest rates at the moment. We do tend to have, as an alternative lender, a little bit more flexibility where we can go ahead and lend off of projections. So what that means is that we'll look to see what your estimates are, and we'll look to see what you believe based on your research and your industry and your business, what you believe you're able to sell your product for, and what revenue that will bring in considering your cost of goods sold, which is what it costs for you to create your product before it goes out the door.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. Laura, did you have your...
Yes.
Awesome.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. All righty. And thumbs up. Can you see that? Okay. Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you for your time, and I'm excited to be here. I'm going to walk you through what I do as the design advisor for REDC. So I provide free graphic design and marketing advising to our loan clients and to non-loan clients. This includes logo development and branding, marketing materials, product labels, website design, photography and videography, social media advisement, and market plan advisement. Now, I'm going to discuss e-commerce website building in a moment, but I want to touch upon these other areas since they may be areas that you need assistance with as a small business owner, or you know someone that this could be helpful for. So when I first meet with a client, I discuss their needs, and especially if they're a startup, oftentimes it's logo and branding. We will decide on how many hours I'm able to assist them with together. And then if it's a logo, we walk through their vision, discussing colors, fonts, symbols, and the personality they want to portray with their company's logo. It's a very collaborative process where I work closely with the clients and we go back and forth with edits and ultimately produce a final logo that is clean, versatile, and scalable. And then the client can walk away with various file formats for their logo, created in vector so they can use it large or small. So a quick example of this is Auspicious Brew, a kombucha company out of Dover, New Hampshire. This client had a very strong vision of the personality they wanted for their logo. They sent me like a mood Pinterest board. And from there, I went to town illustrating a particular flower that they liked with a glass bottle. And many drafts later, as you can see there, here's the final end result. So with this logo, it is put to all their branding. So from their labels to their merchandise, their van wrap, their signage. They even have like a really cool rug when you first walk in on the floor that's huge with their logo. So it's very exciting to see that come to life from that collaboration with that client. And then I also can provide photography and videography for small businesses, headshots, product and event photography, general marketing, and crowdfunding videos. And I can travel to a client's location to take photos or videos, especially if they don't have or if they don't have a space, they can come to REDC for a professional setting to have sort of a typical office building setting in the background. So they're welcome to use our offices for that. I help clients with the development or review of their marketing plan. Like a business plan, business owners really do need a roadmap of how they're going to move forward with their marketing initiatives. What are their goals, their target market, messaging, strategy, budget, etc. I can help introduce what a marketing plan is, or if they have one in existence, I can work with them to assess it, and we can brainstorm on ideas or strategies that maybe they haven't considered. Social media guidance, too, is another area that I like to highlight. That's a very helpful feature, especially for some folks that really aren't too familiar with social media marketing, even as simple as starting a Facebook business page or something like that. I'm going to pause for a drink of water. Now we're getting to a lot of what this presentation is about, website building, and we're going to dip even further into e-commerce. I provide website design and tutelage or website assessment and advisement for small businesses. When planning for website creation or changes, the process is very similar to what I explained with designing a logo, where it's collaborative. There may be many drafts, and our communication will go back and forth between designer and client to make sure that your site is as robust as possible. It's what you want, and it has easy navigation, high-res photography, interesting content, and is doing what you need it to do. SEO development is a critical part of that. So I work with clients to brainstorm and implement at times SEO for on-page SEO, which is like keywords and headers and paragraphs, alt text on images, for example, and off-page optimization of SEO, such as link building, link formats, content marketing, that sort of thing. I design with accessibility in mind between websites and graphic design. And I like to inform clients on why it's important to be inclusive within the content that they're producing, especially for a website. If someone is utilizing a screen reader to intake that information on your website, are they going to be able to experience it the same as if someone was reading it and viewing it? So something like alt text for images. While that's really great for SEO, it's also wonderful to be accessible to make sure that the user experience across the board can be a good experience. So a website design example is Bravo Cleaning Services. These are a few screenshots of a website that I produced for a client who needed nothing with e-commerce, but just a really clean, easy to use website that explained his services and was easy for him to edit. So in creating all the websites that I make, I use the Wix website builder platform. And I find that to be a really easy platform to teach clients how to use, especially if they don't have any experience with website design. However, that's not the only option. I'll get to that a little bit further in a minute. An example of an e-commerce website that I designed in 2020 was for a client, a loan client, Dunk's Mushrooms, which was also produced with Wix. This is a brick and mortar store in Brentwood, New Hampshire, that had to close their doors in early 2020 due to the pandemic, like many businesses. I'm sorry, I should say close their physical doors. They wanted to remain open. So it was around that time they reached out and asked for help building an online shop so that he could have his customers pick up his products locally and also ship products nationally. So this move not only helped him stay going during the pandemic, it also opened up new avenues for him to be able to have sales in other parts of the country. So a big component of what I do when I create a website for a client, I also want to teach them how to be able to manage it themselves. We want our clients to be self-sufficient as they can so that it can help, them save money. Every business is different. Some may want, be able to hire support, and maybe someone, an outside team is helping you with this. But a lot of small businesses that we work with don't have the capacity or the need for that. So we like to help them learn to maintain it for themselves. And I'm still here as a resource should a problem arise down the road, or if they need a refresher or they need a referral to another resource of perhaps a service that is something that I don't provide, I can try to help walk them through it. So since this webinar is about e-commerce, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper onto that topic. I want to first start off by saying having a solid business plan, marketing plan, and branding in place is important before opening your e-commerce website. Having a strong, that's that strong foundation. When you have that structure in place, you're going to be setting yourself up for success with your online store. And when you are ready to get started, there are many platforms. It can be a little daunting looking at all that's out there. Wix, Shopify, and Squarespace are some of the big ones. There's also BigCommerce, Webflow, Weebly, Big Cartel, Square, WordPress. There's a lot more. When you're looking at which platform is right for you, I highly recommend considering all the features, the pricing, and the ease of use for each platform. There will be a lot of differences between all these different platforms in the range of templates they offer, in the number of products you can sell, the product options, the app integration, international selling, multi-currency selling, storage, abandoned cart save features, transaction fees, and so on. So weighing the cost and the ease of building and the features and how you're going to be able to maintain your e-commerce shop, you need to be able to balance all that out so that it fits into your life as a business owner. So especially if you're a solo entrepreneur and it's just you want to make sure that this isn't going to be overwhelming. So you may need to take a route that may be different if you had a larger team and one person was more dedicated to the e-commerce as their sole job. And some platforms are more geared to simply selling products, and some are a mix of content management and e-commerce tools. So for example, Shopify is built as an e-commerce platform. They sell online products, and that is the primary function, whereas Wix builds websites with or without e-commerce, and Wix offers more of a range of content creation tools. You could build, more of a robust website in certain areas and have more integration with e-commerce tools, but you could also have it without e-commerce. So research some plans and see which one feels right. I will say there are some blogs out there that do side-by-side comparisons and breakdowns of the platforms, so you can learn all about the differences. For example, the Style Factory Productions, this was a breakdown. There was even more. This was just all that I could fit onto a slide. So they had a really in-depth breakdown of what Wix, Shopify, and Squarespace could all offer. And then down below this breakdown, it went into actually all the details within. So it gave a very comprehensive look. The only thing I will mention is be mindful of when these are published and always verify on the actual platforms, because things can change, things can be out of date if they don't update them. So, and also most platforms have free trials. So I would highly recommend utilizing those, maybe experiment to see which one's right for you. Because I hate to see when clients, just dive into one without much research. They pay for their website and then they're just not happy with it. And 6 months later, they're switching. And most or all platforms typically are a subscription-based model. So if you invest a couple $100s out the gate for your website, you want to make sure that you're going to be enjoying that for a long time. It's going to fit the needs of your business. Some brief design tips. Your design of your e-commerce shop should be professional, easy to navigate, and visually appealing. Just like a website without e-commerce, once visitors are on your website, you want to make sure it's easy for them to understand what you're selling and that they have an enjoyable shopping experience. With any website, you're going to want to use high quality images for your products. I think that's a pretty obvious one. When the minute you see something that looks like the website's, out of date or just not the best images, someone's going to leave that right away and look elsewhere for their needs. And design with scannable content for eye tracking patterns. This one is a little more in depth that designers sort of consider, but I like to mention it so that people can kind of think about it. There's research done to assess how people intake images on a website. So sometimes people read with an F pattern, so they go from left to right, top to bottom, but as they get down to the bottom, they may not be moving over as much. It kind of looks like a letter F. Some people read with a Z pattern, so they kind of just look at the big highlights and go back and forth. There's a layer cake pattern. There's a couple others I'm not remembering off the top of my head, but typically the template you use is probably going to have implemented one of these designs. When you're thinking about the hierarchy of information, how your website is visually reading to your client, thinking about where the eye is going to bounce next. When you look at this slide, your eye is going up here first because it's at the top, but also because it's a larger font, it's a different color, and it has a higher contrast in general compared to the font down here. So if you had a big giant button, maybe on the bottom right-hand side, your eye might go here first, then the button, then the text. So that's something to consider when thinking about how you're laying out your information on your online store. You want to make sure that it's just very easy for their eyes and minds to digest. And optimizing for mobile, I think that one's pretty obvious too. Google prefers websites that are more mobile friendly than not. If you have a website, if you have an e-commerce store that is not optimized for mobile, Google is not going to reward you by putting you up higher in the search results. So, and many customers are using their phones and their iPads or, tablets to purchase and go shopping. Some general e-commerce tips, be transparent with policies, returns, exchanges, shipping, privacy policies, establishing payment options. Are you drop shipping or are you shipping yourself? The more information that you have up front about your policies and how you operate, the more comfortable shoppers are going to be. You're going to be able to build more trust with them. And when they have a great experience, they're going to refer you to friends. They're going to come and shop again. And that goes as well for customer service. When you're setting up your e-commerce, especially if you're working with a team, besides yourself in your business, who's responsible for assisting customers when they have issues, when they shop on your online store, with returns, with exchanges. Make sure that you have a plan in place for how that you're going to provide that customer service. Most platformers, website, e-commerce platforms, I'm thinking probably have SSL certificates set up for users to trust your website. SSL certificates ensure the communication between your visitors and your site are secure. The data traveling between the visitor and your website stay encrypted, especially when they're checking out. You want to make sure that it's a safe browsing and shopping experience for all. So that's just something I always like to mention to have e-commerce shop owners understand about the safety of their shoppers. And point of sale integration. If you have a physical shop, some platforms, I think Shopify might, I'm not sure on the others, they may have an easier setup with POS integration to your e-commerce store than others. So if you have a brick and mortar store and you want to make sure that what you're selling online and what you're selling in your store is always going to be consistent with each other, so you don't accidentally sell out of something or there's a mix-up, you're going to want to make sure that there's that integration happening. And questions. I think we may be doing questions at the end, so
Questions, just pop them right into the Q&A chat, guys, and I'm happy to, we're
I'm
having
having,
things as we go along.
okay, great,
We can do them at the end as well, but if people have them, as well.
perfect.
I had a question actually,
Yeah.
for you, Laura, as you were talking. When it comes to SEOs, do you have any like recommendations as far as like websites or software to like track your productivity with your SEOs, like where besides like Google perhaps, or is that what you would go through?
I use Google a lot of the times for
Okay.
that. Are you talking like do you mean like the ranking?
Yeah.
Yes, there is a site, SEM Rush,
That's a
SEM
good
Rush, is one that I've used a lot. I've played around with some others. A lot of times I will do a lot of research. It depends on the industry where I'll kind of like see where I'm going to be developing some of my market research when I'm assisting a client. But that's one of the bigger ones that I use.
Awesome. That was fantastic. Thank you. I love that the brands you mentioned were, I mean, I know they're local businesses, but both of them, I was like, oh, I love Dunks. Like,
Yeah.
their mushrooms are awesome.
Yeah. I'm a fan too.
Right? So good. All right. Dina, my friend, would you share your experience? I know you worked with the REDC with your business as well, and you have both e-commerce and brick and mortar. So you're exactly what we're talking about today.
Yes. First of all, Laura, I was writing down notes as you were speaking, because I definitely have used the REDC more for the financial aspect of a business, in terms of trying to acquire funding, like where do I go? But I didn't know that you guys did like branding, assessment of SEO, and like even photography and videography, which has been a big challenge for me recently. So we'll be talking. So guys, I do have an e-commerce platform. I have my own website, VLCouture.com. I use Wix for myself because of the amount of integrations on there, the amount of reporting I can get. Like you can integrate into Google Analytics, you can track the audiences that are coming into your website from different platforms. And the POS system, which we just talked about. I was so happy that they had POS because I literally can track all my inventory. We have like over 1,000 pieces in our store, so it's very helpful. So yeah, where should we start? I mean, I'll tell you one thing. We began as being online first. We didn't open the store until a year later. We started during the pandemic. So obviously everything was online. And my main thing was to prove that I had the audience there for the type of business that I had. So if you're starting a business, because I know everyone might be in a different level of where they're at with their businesses, I think starting online is always a good point to see like who you're actually attracting, who wants your product, etc. Is there anything specific you want me to focus on, Alyssa, just so that I don't kind of like move around in different directions? Because I'm going to talk about everything.
I mean, I want you to talk about everything, so just go for it. But I mean, really, like, we want to hear your personal experiences as a business
Yeah.
owner, what e-commerce has done for your brick and mortar, like why you do both, basically.
Got it. Got it. So e-commerce, obviously an extra stream of revenue for all of you. And I mean, sorry, I need to grab a glass of water. I'm so sorry.
You're fine. No worries.
I could feel my throat going during
I know. Same. It's that time
starting
of
to get a
year.
very raspy voice.
We all do. It's early in the morning.
Yeah.
Liz, after Dina shares, maybe if you wouldn't mind going into some of the financing options that you guys have, that would be
Yeah,
absolutely
that sounds
amazing.
perfect.
Great.
Read my mind. I was thinking paying for inventory
Yes. Oh my
and
God.
shipping.
Totally. Totally.
Oh my gosh, sorry.
That's all right. Welcome back.
Thanks,
It's so
thanks.
dry too. That's a whole nother
know.
element, not just early, but the weather. Yeah. So if my
Yes.
nose starts to bleed.
One of the biggest things is it provides validity of your business. I mean, the other thing too is in order for us to get customers through the door, they need to know what we're selling. So one, it was the transparency of pricing for us. We provide all of our pricing online so that they can see, okay, can I afford this product? One. Two, the designers that we carry, the styles that we carry. Is it the type of style that you want to buy, that you want to try on? Something to know about the bridal industry is that gowns are expensive. Okay, you're going to probably spend over $500 on each piece. And to be able to look at it online and say, okay, I'm going to buy this $500 piece or $1,000 piece can get a little daunting because you're like, is this going to be the one? So we kind of had the opposite effect where we had to start e-commerce so people knew what we had. And then we opened up a brick and mortar a year later because everybody needed to try on the product before purchasing. I mean, if it's your wedding, this is an emotional purchase, right? So it's not something where you can just say yes over the internet. You really have to be there in person, feel the fabric, feel it on yourself, and be like, okay, this is the one. So that was a big part of adding e-commerce. And the other thing too is it's not just about using your own website, it's about partnering up with other reselling sites as well. I mean, there's a reason why Amazon's very successful. We personally use, like we've used Poshmark, if you guys have heard of that, Mercari. In the bridal industry, there's Queenly, there's stillwhite.com. So by putting our products out in various platforms, we're able to, again, add more streams of revenue, but also attract a wider audience. So that's been a big part of our business here.
Do you feel like you've had any challenges with both, like managing both? I think a lot of people, perhaps it's
Yeah.
daunting, the idea of like, oh, another thing to manage, like,
Yes.
or has it been an easy, smooth transition? You're like, piece of cake.
It depends. I mean, if you have a team, it might not be as difficult. But for me, starting out on my own, we were 100% online in the beginning. So 100% of our revenue was online. But because we had to open up a brick and mortar the second year, our focus ended up being our store. So it went from 100% of our revenue coming from online to 10% of our revenue coming in online. That's not a bad thing for us because we went from like our first year was like $10,000 that we brought in into now we're making six figures. So, but it's, it's that effect of because we're online, people trust us enough to come into the store. And then, our service obviously adds on to that. And the products that we carry adds on to the success of the business.
Laura and Liz, would you say that's pretty common for most people? Do you think that a how do I put this? If there's a brick and mortar involved, is the e-commerce driving people more to the brick and mortar as opposed to perhaps having like a lot of high internet sales? Or is it mixed bag?
I think it's mixed bag, but I think baseline a website in general, whether it's e-commerce or not, needs to exist to have that legitimacy. I think the e-commerce, especially in like the bridal industry, you know, the wedding dress industry, very much makes a lot of sense. You know, for others, you know, maybe for a coffee shop, that may not be the case, you know, but you know, something that is going to, you know, I've seen some businesses have a Facebook page is their website, and they don't think they need to have a website, but I think that there's going to be a loss there that they're not really thinking about.
Yeah, I would agree that it's absolutely mixed, and certainly a lot of individuals will want to search out the website prior to visiting the location, or perhaps see what products they offer. Maybe they're researching, comparing to other businesses, but certainly I think that it's a good starting point. And Facebook, to Laura's point, just really isn't enough. So really establishing an own like independent site of a business to have as a landing page is huge.
Dina, question for you. So you went with Wix, obviously, and Laura has mentioned a few. I know when I had my business, I used Squarespace. But at the time it was like technically a photography art-based website, I think. So it maybe wasn't the best decision for me. But it was the most user-friendly that I could find for my own brain. How did you decide to go with Wix, and what, you know, did you try anything else out? What recommendations do you have for people who are looking to build out their websites?
Yeah, absolutely. I personally have had a relationship with Wix for 10 years or so. Because when I was in college, Wix was being, they were promoting Wix very heavily, and I just loved the idea of being able to build my own website, like aesthetically putting it together so it represented my brand. At the time, Shopify wasn't how it is today. So I think part of it is the bias of being with Wix for so long, but the other part of it was honestly just having all the tools I needed in one place, like all in one. A lot of people have to get separate softwares for like CRM, POS, calendars, because we have booked appointments. That's how we service our clients. Like people have to book appointments. So the fact that it had all the things that we needed on there was perfect. Shopify, I've heard a lot say that they're like top in e-commerce. Like if you're selling products, go with Shopify. They are a great website too, but I think because we offer products and a service, along with having to track inventory, take in appointments, being able to check all of our analytics and reporting for the website, because that actually determines how we market to our audience. We use all that data to make sure that, one, we are attracting the right people, and then two, like what's going to be our marketing strategy for the next couple months. So I mean, that's kind of like how I made my decision. Pricing, you know, goes into it too, but it's worth it. I don't mind paying a little bit more for something that's gonna make it easier for me to use. So user experience is really big for me.
Awesome. Can you chat a little bit about some financing options? I'm sure lots of people on here are waiting for that piece.
Yeah, no, thank you. And this is such a nice segue to Laura and Dina's point in terms of inventory and managing inventory. A big piece of that is paying for the inventory. And so at the REDC, we do go ahead and work with clients with developing their budget, many times advising on the budget. And so we do place a lot of confidence that you know your business and industry best. And so you're going to know what it costs to price your product. And so when I provide advice to clients, it's going to be essentially coming from a place of love and strength, but poking holes at the plan to really think about the full business cycle. And so it can be really fearful for some clients, because when you think about an estimate or projections, you know, they're like, well, I'm just making up numbers. Like, well, you're making up numbers based on your experience to figure out how much is this going to cost, and perhaps how much of your product did you want in inventory for your e-commerce shop, and whether you're going to be handling those products directly or having it outsourced to a third party who's going to be shipping for you. And so that's what's going to allow for us to really align the funding. And so we have a few sources of funding. And so one, we have direct lending, where we lend directly from several sources, whether it be our New American Fund, whether it be directly from our revolving loan fund. And also we have Kiva, which is a crowdsourcing fund. And so before I really talk more about Kiva, our direct lending, many times if it's up to 50,000, is our SBA microloan program, where the rates are at 7 3/4, 7.75, which may or may not seem good, right? So we are in a higher interest rate environment. And with that being said, that rate has to be factored into the budget, based on, hey, I'm repaying this, and what's that going to do to my top line revenue? And what's that going to do to my cost in creating my product? And so with that being said, I go through as an underwriter, and we'll look at the credit report, we'll look at the income coming in based on tax returns, and we'll work with you closely in terms of the budget, as I mentioned, really kind of poking holes to make sure it aligns. And mostly it's to make sure that there's enough, that you have the money that you need. Because what I found is small business owners that are self-funded, solopreneurs, have never worked with a lender before. And so they get really nervous in terms of their funding. So they come in and say, oh, well, I left this out of the budget, and it may be, you know, shipping costs, because I didn't want to ask for too much. And then I try to really bring more confidence into the conversation of saying, we want to include that because the underwriting process is the same. And so the last thing we want is to go through the process all over again where you didn't have enough money the first time. And so we try to include the big picture. And then from there, if we need to scale it back, then we do. And that really is, we work in 4-week cycles with our credit committee and then our board. So it really gives us time to work closely with business owners to, one, understand the financials, understand the business. And as I mentioned, I love going out to brick and mortars and to visit with clients. And I met with a client yesterday that they coincidentally ran out of their product 2 hours before they closed, because they've been transitioning from, this is their first brick and mortar. So they've been trying to manage the inventory. So exactly to the conversation that we're talking about is making sure that you have enough of your product. But that's also, it's like more of, it's like a combination between art and science of, if you're working with perishables, you don't want to throw away food, because then you're essentially throwing away revenues. And so then it's almost, you're better with running out, being sold out, and then trying to figure out what is that balance. And so when it comes to the financing piece, we do place a lot of confidence on the owners, of course, to know the business. And then from there, we come in from a lender's perspective to, one, make sure that it can be repaid and serviced, and also that it's best for the business based on profits. And so there's a lot of fear with debt also. And so one thing that I like to point out is that it's not a credit card that you're going to buy a coffee with, and unless I'm going to call you out because I saw your Starbucks cup, where you're buying a Starbucks coffee and then, you're not making any money off of it. And so when you are borrowing money to create product, the idea is that you're going to sell your product for more than what you bought it for, and you're going to make money on that. And that spread is going to be your profit margin. And so we're going to look at that to see, okay, well, how is that going to be serviced? Can you repay that based on a portion of the profits coming in to then allow you to grow even more in the years to come? And so we also are one of the we're the only New Hampshire hub for Kiva, which is in contrast to the interest rates that we have. It's actually a 0% loan. And so it's a crowd-funded product where there's 2 phases to it. And so I'm not going to go into too much detail because mark your calendars on February 12th at 9:30, we're launching our webinar series. It's going to be the second Monday of every month where we're doing an introduction to Kiva. But in a nutshell, you're essentially going out to your private network for the first phase, raising a small amount of money and really practicing your pitch. That's what I tell business owners. This is an opportunity to talk about your business, practice your pitch, and say, hey, would you lend me 20, 30 bucks to get my business off the ground, to pay for my website, to pay for my inventory? And that's up to 15,000 and it's 0% with 0 fees. And so it's also very lenient and flexible when it comes to credit, meaning that Kiva does not look at credit scores specifically, where it's really overlooked. And a lot of it's looked at looking at payment history, just like we do as a direct lender. However, it gives a great opportunity for small businesses across the state, and it's a global platform to really be able to get those startup funds and be able to do that with a non-dilutive loan that's 0%. So I'll pause here because I can go on for days. Now that my coffee's kicked in.
For the attendees, Laura did just share, and I shared it for everyone, more on Kiva and on the REDC website, so you guys can check out that February 12th program, which I just wrote down for myself as well. So we have about 15 minutes left. Are there any questions about anything that we've talked about from our fabulous viewers right now? And you can just pop them right into the Q&A section if you have any. And in the meantime, all 3 ladies, I would ask if you could each please give our viewers one piece of advice, the best piece of advice you can give them in regards to small businesses and diversifying with e-commerce. So maybe it's, something that you see as like a repetitive mistake with a lot of people are making, but like the number one thing that you wish you had known or you wish everyone knew. Laura.
Yeah, I can start. Yeah, I'd say just get out of your own way. Nothing is perfect. So don't wait for that perfection. Just get it out there, because then you can go ahead and adapt the website. You can adapt your product as you receive feedback from your clients and customers who you're serving. So get out of your own way. Don't let the fear drag you down. Just get it out.
I love that. Awesome.
I would say I'm going to repeat one of the things I had said was, a business plan and a marketing plan and strong branding. I think that foundation, especially, I think a lot of people do not put enough time into really developing a marketing plan. Dina kind of mentioned assessing her website. She looks at the analytics and then she changes and pivots based on reviewing that. So when you have a marketing plan, it's planning, but it's also going back to it continuously and having that analytical approach and assessing what's working, what's not, because some clients just keep doing the same exact thing, and eventually it's not working, but they're not changing. So the marketing plan is going to help with that. A business plan overall, definitely work with a business advisor like Liz or another business advisor with REDC or SBDC or SCORE. It's definitely going to set you up for success. And even if you have a business advisor as a soundboard or a design advisor like me, perhaps you have a Shopify website and you just want me to give you a assessment of it and be a soundboard if you have new ideas. I think working in partnership with other people who just have your interests at heart and want to help is, you don't have to go it alone.
For me, I would say I'm So my analytical side comes from, I used to be a scientist. So like everything's about data for me. Don't be afraid to test. I always test the market. If something comes up and you're like, is this going to work? Test it. Ask your customers. They're going to tell you the truth. Like for me, I get to see them in person. At the end of an appointment, I'll ask the same question to each appointment for an entire week and see what those responses are, which tells me whether I should move forward with that thought or not. So don't be afraid to adapt. To Liz's point earlier, margins, you should always think about your margins. Where can you save money? Where can you make more money? I'm not saying to make your product super expensive. I'm talking about being able to make enough money. Like if my dresses, I'll give you an example. I have a dress that retails at $1,000. I want to at least be making $500 off that dress, if not a little bit less. So, you know, don't undersell yourself either. Be very patient with yourself. Being an entrepreneur is not easy. It's never just up and up and up. I will tell you, I've had very depressive moments where things are going really good and then you're like, yeah, and then you're down here and you're like, oh my God, am I gonna close? What am I gonna do? So, you know, just stay positive, keep good people around you, and yeah, adapt.
Ride that wave.
That's right.
Ladies, we did have one question that came through. Christian is asking if he reaches out, Laura or Liz, to the REDC, can he get constructive criticism on his websites that he currently has?
Absolutely. If a client is looking for an assessment, I can review for with a mind frame of how the design is, how the functionality is, you know, what is the user's experience, how accessible is it? And then I typically will type up a couple pages of, you know, what my review is, suggestions, recommendations. And then if someone wants to come back in, you know, a few months after they've made changes and say, how did I do? You know, sometimes it happens like that. And that's great too.
Is anyone having like a specific challenge with their website or e-commerce right now? Like, I'm just curious from the people who are attending this workshop, if anyone has like a specific question about their website that they're having a challenge with.
Christian, did you have something specific about your website that you are hoping to get constructive feedback on? Yeah. Maybe not.
If I could also just add while we're waiting for perhaps some participant questions is constructive feedback is also so important because it's not just surrounding yourselves, to Dina's point, with really positive people that support you through the business cycle, but are also going to be honest with you when it comes to feedback. And I always, I try to set the expectation that I, certainly will give honest feedback and advice. However, it may not be always well received, but it is based on what's presented and it's coming from a good place. And so you want to really be in touch with all feedback that you receive, and then understand that, even if it is received as negative at times, that constructive feedback to adapt and make changes may not feel good. However, as a business owner, it's really kind of separating some of those emotional responses with a logical mindset and thought of, hey, what is this going to do? What is my goal here? And this is how I adapt and pivot, is to really to make, validate your feelings that it may not feel good to receive this feedback. However, the goal is to go ahead and grow a business and to do better and do great things. And it's maybe totally new, maybe your first business, maybe a new product that you brought from your mindset to paper on a business plan that you've never received feedback on. So you're feeling uncomfortable anyways. And so making space for how you're feeling and validating those feelings while also being open to receiving feedback. And again, it's moving that fear out of the way and sharing your draft of your business plan, getting it from your mind onto paper, getting it out and saying, okay, I'm going to get back what I get back, and I'm going to be open to adapting and making those changes. because it is going to help you grow and really be a stronger business owner and build your business in the best way possible.
You want to be coachable.
Mm.
Right. Oh, love that, Liz.
Fantastic. Christian said he was just looking for, he has a few side hustles and 3 websites specifically. So he's looking for like marketing and analytics on those. So I guess the next question, the last question before we wrap up would be, how do people get in touch with you? Websites, social media, you know, if they need to reach out with questions, who are they going to?
So for REDC, definitely go to our website, redc.com. And there is a page that focuses a little more on financing and a page that focuses a bit more on business advising. And what I do falls under that. Even though it's design advising, it is attached with that advising component. So, you know, whether you want to reach out to Liz or I, typically you will fill out a form and you may get contacted by someone else first to fill out a couple, you know, very quick forms to fill out, and then we can get an appointment scheduled. I would like to mention that with my schedule, when I am scheduling, typically I'm scheduling, you know, 2, 3, sometimes 4 weeks out as far as working on more robust projects, like a whole website build or something like that. So I like to give it the expectation that it's not always the, you know, fastest turnaround. Like if you were to hire a design firm that could produce something within a week or 2. So just like to mention that too.
We did have one more question come through. Dina, I want you to say your website as well, but real quick, a question about Kiva. Can any business utilize this resource, or is it solely focused on e-commerce businesses?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it can be any business that is brick and mortar or e-commerce. It's generally small businesses that cannot receive financing through a traditional realm, or are generally in the state of New Hampshire is really one of the key things that we try to fund directly in New Hampshire. But what doesn't matter if you're e-commerce or brick and mortar. Yeah, certainly reach out to us. And as Laura mentioned, we have a really short intake process. Most likely our colleague Adam would be reaching out, and it's a confidential intake form as our registration is a nonprofit. And so given our funding sources, we're just required to keep track of which clients we're supporting. But again, that's all confidential. And then once our intake forms are received, then you get connected with Laura and myself or Sunil or Dan.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. And Dina, if people want to reach you, how are they getting in touch if they have questions?
Yeah, so you can reach me anywhere. I'm big on LinkedIn. I love when people add me on LinkedIn. So look me up, Dina Akel on LinkedIn, add me, connect. I always share a bunch of business tips on there. Any seminars we're doing, any radio interviews, in case you want to be a part of that. Also, you can email me directly. I have no problem with that. It's hello, HELLO at VLBridal.com. That's the easiest email to use for me because Vieira tends to be spelled incorrectly sometimes, but that's fine. And I mean, we work closely with Riviera University, Suffolk University, so I'm honestly, no kidding, if you ever want to like meet with me in person for a coffee and you want to talk your business and ask questions or just brainstorm, I'm so down for that. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for joining us today. My fabulous panelists, thank you for being here and sharing your wealth of information on small businesses and e-commerce. And hopefully we will see you again very, very soon for another educational workshop.